me see, I can do 2, maybe 3, we'll see. 2, but they'll be, you ready? In the stream, down where I lived, or everywhere, there's rocks, and I set up a place where I put my little island of rocks, and I would sit there all day, not all day, but 5 or 6 hours, and bring down some drinks, maybe some tequila, coffee, put it on the rocks, my book. I'd have a beach chair in the water, so the water would flow over me, and I was so still and quiet that I'd see so many birds and snakes. And there was a little snake that began to live on my little island that I built for it. And he would wait there, I guess, and trap birds, because sometimes I'd come out and I'd see all these feathers on the island where obviously the snake had been waiting, and he would go out and get them. And that gave me the idea for this poem. It's dedicated to Czesław Milosz and D.H. Lawrence, and because they both wrote marvelous snake poems, and it's called Not Quetzalcoatl. When clothed in clouds and barely innocent, I was told a devious, beautiful serpent waited someday for all of us to walk to it in the desert, or that deep in the summer woods on a rock or just under a stump, or in a locked garden it quivered for the sure, careless foot. Now I know different. The serpent is the worm in the apple that the doctor told me to take each day. That the serpent is the dragon that suns itself on my heart. That the serpent is this water snake that keeps me company in the creek, that crowns itself with feathers on the little island that I've built for it. And another poem, Down in the Bottomland. This would be called a bottomland. The ridge goes down, and then where I lived, there was a whole bottomland that would get flooded every year when in the spring, when the snows would melt. And this is about being down there in the bottomland. Down in the bottomland, beyond the orchards and the woods, down past the field that floods a few times every year, down past the groundhogs and promiscuous rabbits, the gray swallows and foolish mice that hang around the house, there's a different kind of animal. It sits there along the creek at night and stares up through the branches at the chinking of frozen stars and listens to the water whipping itself on the stones. It looks like a rock, folded almost into itself. It looks foolish. It's thinking of a way to devise another universe. It's got its signals crossed, hinged there in the air like some petroglyph, the roots, the delicate tongue, and limbs gone haywire. And a final poem for this little series, Welcome Matt. Gary Snyder visited me and stayed for a few days, twice, and once in New Broomfield and once here. And we had a big party for him. And during that party, my dog, Pinga, who's in this poem, kind of disappeared, and then suddenly in the middle of the evening, night, came back with a deer head in its mouth and dropped it on the welcome mat outside the door. I guess some hunters had decapitated the deer, and then he had brought it back. And it was like a visitation. It was really, I mean, people were just awed. There was a bonfire, and suddenly this deer head. And this is called Welcome Mat for Gary Snyder. Nothing fades away in the fall so fast as crickets in the wind. The clock chews the sun a little louder, ticking along with the heart. Sometimes we are unaware of time. Nothing held us more spellbound than our guest, a poet monk from the West, talking about organs and glands, the ass of dog and skunk, the feet of a fox, the tongue of Orpheus, hair on a hare's face, hearts of mosquitoes, the nipples of possums, legs and hooves of deer, and a word about never passing up mother's milk. And I mentioned the unshaven armpit of a woman in heat. On it went, crickets outside scratching the flint of silence against the cool fall sunset, blue sarius about to rise, sugar maples standing in pools of gold and blood. Something had come at dusk to pay us all a visit. When the door was open, no one was any longer spellbound by guest or conversation. There on the deck, on the welcome mat, Pinga had lugged us a present and set it in a pool of evening light. A deer's head, still upright and bloody, and Pinga shaking the pond of mud he was covered with down on the deck, proud, neck held high, telling me he had just escorted one of the immortals from the sky back to the earth and us. For a moment, none of us had anything to say. We just stood there in dead silence, our eyes lost in the distance of an absence of eyes, our thoughts in the earth, not the sky, crickets ticking like stars in the brush. We were transformed into unexpected hosts. Frost at midnight, drinking glacial melt from the Milky Way, we toasted our new guest on the welcome mat, sat up late by the bonfire, shadows flickering, then hit the hay to dream that deer head telling us some secret song brought back from the tallow-lit land of the dead.